What's up, y'all? So today, we have something a little bit different. Um, I don't usually do shit like this, but I was like, okay, so I was scrolling on TikTok and I came across this TikTok talking about this file that was released from the CIA, called, what the fuck's it called? Um, Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process, right? So, um, yeah, basically, I seen this TikTok talking about this uh, document that the CIA released, and I just kind of thought it would be interesting to go through it with you guys because myself, I'm really into like um, I guess metaphysics. You could call it like I don't know how to describe it really, but like anything concerned with the reality like above us. You know what I'm saying? Like um I'm just really into all that stuff. So I'd like to just go through this and like I don't know. I honestly don't even know if I'll ever upload this to YouTube, but I figured I should at least record myself um reading through this document. I've never read it before. I have no idea exactly what it's about, but based off the things the TikTok was saying, it just seemed like it would be interesting. So yeah, I'm just gonna read through it, I guess. So here we go. Um, so yeah, it was released by the CIA, uh, June 9th, 1983. Um, Analysis of gateway process to whoever the fuck this dude is. Um, yeah. So it says, you tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. Um, as I set out to fulfill that tasking it. Okay, sorry. As I set out to fulfill that, there should be a fucking comma here. Tasking it soon became. Wait, should there? As I set out to fulfill that, tasking it soon. I don't know. This is some weird grammar here. Anyway, as I set out to fulfill that, tasking it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business, initially based on conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me. I had recourse to the biomedical models developed by Itzhak Bentov to obtain information concerning the physical models or aspects of the process. Sorry, I don't usually read shit out loud. I don't usually read shit really. Um, I don't really read shit that much. But yeah. Um, I used to, so I'm kind of good at reading, but I also I have a very scattered brain. But yeah, that's not important right now. Where was he? Okay, yeah. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature of functioning of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonably lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. So I just want to say real quick, if you guys are confused as fuck, that's okay. So am I. Like, I don't think anyone is supposed to understand what this means. Once this was done, the next step involved. Wait, did I already read that? Oh yeah, I did. Sorry. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomena of out-of-body states into the language of physical science, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations, and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. So, yeah. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis. So, like, I'm just gonna say, I feel like, why do they word shit so fucking, like, complicated? Like, I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis. So basically what he's saying, he briefly spent time going over the outside factors maybe affecting hypnosis, but like, why do they have to fucking word shit so complicated? Yeah. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, which is biofeedback. That's like, that would be like the law of attraction, I think. I'm pretty sure. And transcendental meditations, so that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, that introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicate that at times these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerated movement into the gateway experience. So he's basically saying here that these things, I think, could lead to the gateway experience, whatever that is. So that's kind of like what we're here to figure out, I guess, is like, what the fuck is the gateway experience? I mean, I kind of have some ideas as to what they could be talking about. But I'm not really sure, so we'll just keep reading. Niels Bohr, the renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, "You are not thinking, you are merely being logical." The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left-brain linear thinking. So, to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic but a touch of right-brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete comfortable grasp of the concepts involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. So I think that's a pretty smart thing to say, you know what I mean? Because someone who's really smart kind of has to realize that, like, we don't know everything. There has to be some parts of science and discovery that's like, you got to tap into your more creative side, you know what I mean? It can't always be about fucking logic, because logic can't explain everything. We don't have the answers for everything, so sometimes you got to think out of the box. Paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference in the end, I found it necessary to return, at least briefly, to the question of the impact of the gateway experience on common belief systems. I did so because, although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such systems, I felt that it was necessary, after having completed the analysis, to point out that the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the gateway experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. Yeah. So that makes sense. Because honestly, if you're not open to if you have an idea of how the universe works or whatever, and then someone's like, maybe this is how it worked, you gotta be open-minded, you know what I'm saying? This study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and of the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make it a useful guide for other USANSCOM personnel who are required to take the gateway training or work with gateway materials. So I still don't know what this gateway shit is, but I mean, imagine this is what your job is, having to work with this. I'm imagining that it's some type of explanation for the universe or something. But yeah. Imagine if that was your fucking job. They're like, okay, so by the way, we know how the universe works. Okay. The gateway experience, brain hemisphere synchronization in perspective. Introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience. Okay, so is that what it is? It just means an altered state of conscience? Okay. Involving brain hemisphere synchronization, or hemisync. The most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlay operation of related methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback, or manifestation. It is easiest to effectively describe that gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques that share some common aspects with the gateway experience, but which are nevertheless different. So all these things have something in common with this gateway experience, but they're not exactly it. There's some different shit. They're on some different shit. In this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outset which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. So that makes sense. It's like this is dipping your toe in, and then you get the bigger picture, I guess. Oh shit, they got pictures too, but shit, that's spoiler. We didn't get there yet. Okay. According to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and the biomedical engineering models of Ishtak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers, and lower cerebral portions and associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain following successful disarrangement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is the self-cognitive, verbal, and linear reasoning component of the mind. It fulfills the function of screening incoming stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right hemisphere of the mind. The right hemisphere, which function as the non-critical, holistic, non-verbal, and pattern-oriented component of the brain, appears to accept what the left hemisphere passes to it without question. Consequently, if the left hemisphere can be distracted either through boredom or through reduction to a I don't know what that word is, soporific semi-sleep state, external stimuli, to include hypnotic suggestions, are allowed to pass unchallenged into the right hemisphere, where they are accepted and acted upon directly. So it almost sounds like they're describing the right brain as your subconscious. I wonder if they have like a bunch of other files speaking on that. The result may involve an emotional reaction originating in the lower cerebral region, sensory motor response requiring involvement of the cortex, and so on. Both the sensory and the motor cortices of the right cerebral portion of the brain contain sequence of points known as the homunculus, which corresponds to points in the body. See Exhibit 1, next page. Wait, okay. Right cerebral will contain a sequence of points. So the body. What? I never heard about any of this before. This is pretty weird. The homunculus. I've heard of that before. I've heard of that in alchemy, like on the show Full Metal Alchemist. They reference it, but also in the actual, like, in alchemy, it's like a concept, and it's like a person. You build a person, and they would list ingredients on how to build a person, and it was like crazy. It was like take horse shit and put it in like a shed and like leave it for 6 days or some shit. It was like crazy shit. But they called it the homunculus, and you could grow a human essentially, and it could help you. That's what they would talk about. It would help you, like, but I don't know if that shit was metaphorical, and honestly, I don't even remember where the fuck I was reading that shit from. It was these old, like, alchemy things. Texts relating to alchemy. I don't know what they were called. They were talking about that shit. I don't know if this is I guess they're just calling it the homunculus for some reason. I don't know why. But it's some part of the brain. In the right brain, did they say? Where were we even at? Fuck, I lost us. Portion of the body. Stimulate. Okay, wait, I just want to. Both the sensory and the motor cortices of the right cerebral portion of the brain contain a sequence of points. Yeah, so it's in the right side of the brain, this homunculus thing. So okay. Yeah. Stimulation of the corresponding area on the cortex causes intermediate response in the associated portion of the body. Consequently, induction of the suggestion that the left leg is numb, if it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged and is referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction being generated that will induce the feeling of numbness. So that's like the placebo effect, I guess they're talking about. Similarly, the suggestion that the person is experiencing a general feeling of happiness and well-being would be referred to the appropriate pleasure centers located in the lower cerebral portion or in the cortex of the right hemisphere, thereby inducing the suggestion feeling of euphoria. Finally, suggestions such as one that informs the hypnotic subject that he enjoys enhanced concentration or powers of memory would be responded to in the right hemisphere by accessing unused information storage capacity normally held in reserve as a result of left hemisphere selection and control processes. So that's like, based on that, what they just said, I can imagine if you have a certain sound that could promote concentration, and if you were able to really zone out into your work, you would let your guard down to the point where you wouldn't be logically assessing what you're doing with your left brain, and then you'd go into that flow state. And then if this sound was able to, like, stimulate concentration, it could help even more. But they're not even talking about sound. That's just like what comes to my mind when I think of them saying that, because I like to listen to like different sounds on YouTube and stuff, so that's probably why I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I'm probably gonna say a lot of random shit because I have a lot of random thoughts, and I'm always saying random things. Finally, suggestions such as one that informs the hypnotic subject that he enjoys... Oh, no, we already read that. This aspect will become significant in the context of the gateway process when attention is given to examining the way that hypnosis may be used to accelerate progress in the early stages of the gateway experience. Okay. Transcendental meditation. On the other hand, transcendental meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral cortex on the right side of the brain. Okay, the other day when I was playing Phantasy Star Online 2, I talked about I came across someone called Shakti, and it reminded me of this thing called Kundalini. And that's what I was talking about. I was saying that I was speaking... There's like a fire. There's a concept of a fire that you have within you, and it starts at the bottom of your spine, and you can get it up, and you can raise your shit, and your chakras. You gotta unlock your chakras, and it's like this concept. And it was in like Hinduism, I think. But I was talking about it because I felt like I also had a fire in me, because one day I woke up and it felt like I was on fire, and I tore my room apart with a baseball bat. But then it's like that was, for some background, I was in a very dangerous environment. There was violence, a lot of things. It was like it woke up, and then after that, it was like I kind of had to get a handle on it. But ever since that day, I feel like I've had, like, it's like something awoke in me that day. But I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm just saying that's how I was thinking. That's how I learned about this whole Kundalini thing. And it's funny that they're speaking about this. And actually, I just glanced over, and I'm actually seeing they're mentioning the Kundalini. So that's very interesting. So transcendental meditation, it's like, that's the Kundalini. That's raising up that fire. As a result, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus starting from the toes and on up. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in a book by Lee Sinella, MD, entitled Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence. It's funny, Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence, and I'm just talking about how I just fucking tore my room apart with a baseball bat, and I'm like, I think it's this Kundalini thing. It's like, I don't know, bro, I think you're going fucking crazy. Anyway, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities, which comprise the third and lateral ventricles of the brain. Okay. In addition, according to Bentov, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemisphere may be explained as a self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. So I kind of also think that too about this. It's like, okay, is it even anything crazy, or was that just like my body just doing that to itself? Because it's like I was in a dangerous situation. So it's like I had to, it's like, okay, you're not going to be a like pushover anymore. Like you gotta snap into it type shit. Cause like I said, I just woke up. It felt like I was on fire. It felt like my whole body was on fire. And it felt like I could go through anything. And it just literally, there was like zero like rationale to what I was doing. And I just picked up a baseball bat and I just like, but that kind of gives you a context of the situation I was in. Like I had to sleep with a baseball bat. So it's like, so I just woke up and I literally tore my room apart with a baseball bat. But it's like, what caused that? Was like, what, you know, this, I'm sorry I'm making this so personal, but like I had no idea I was going to reference this shit. And I was just going on about this the other day, like, super fucking interesting. State, Bentov also notes that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the brain, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini. So I'm going to tell you right now, I can kind of have a feeling it's on some Star Wars shit. You can unlock this shit on the good way through meditation or the bad way through fucking it's do or die type shit. Which would explain why so many ancient civilizations are fucking making people have these like rituals where it's like do or die, because it really it would make them adults, because that's why, because it unlocks some shit. Bentov states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Okay, so they're on that sound shit too, obviously. Bentov cites as an example repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produces that range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instances, by an air conditioning duct. Wait. Oh, he's saying, okay, so those things could produce these frequencies, and okay, yeah. He also notes that the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous physic Kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have had a particularly sensitive nervous system. So, all that pretty much just blew my fucking mind. I don't know about y'all, but this transcendental meditation, that just blew my fucking mind. That they just referenced all of that stuff, like, cause I'm not the fucking CIA, like, you know what I'm saying, and I'm just like, and neither are other people, but of course I've learned about these things to an extent through, you know, videos on YouTube and stuff, but it's just interesting to see that this is what the CIA is like studying, and this is like their take on it. So I'm not fucking crazy when I'm talking about this shit, obviously. Not that I even do like a lot, because I mean, it's just, I don't know. I look at it almost like when I talk about that stuff, people think of it almost like I'm coming off as like religious almost or something. So I don't like to talk about that stuff super often. But I brought it up when I was like live streaming on Twitch the other day. So that's why my mind is so fucking blown right now. And then biofeedback, that's like law of attraction, manifestation. The third consciousness altering methodology, which will be briefly described, is biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access. I gotta drink water. I'm like super dry. I'm not used to this shit. This reading out loud shit. I feel like a fucking teacher. Alright. The third consciousness altering methodology, which will be briefly described as biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor, and sensory cortices and assorted pain and pleasure centers. I'm going to say right away, I'm going to assume that this is going to talk about, like, from my understanding of the concept of like the law of attraction or manifestation, you tell yourself certain things so that it goes into your subconscious, and then you subconsciously act those things out. So the law of attraction isn't really as like mystical as people make it seem. Well, it's not even that they make it seem, it's just there's some type of idea that it's like crazy. You're not just gonna imagine money into your life. It's not about that. It's about literally putting it into your consciousness that you are going to get money or whatever. You're gonna get this or that, or you're gonna change this way. It's about nailing it in there to the point where subconsciously you're acting it out, which will happen if you really, really fucking nail it in. If you really, really want, that's why if you really, really want something, you will get it. Because you're constantly telling your subconscious that you want that. So subconsciously, no matter what your goal is for that day, you're acting out what you subconsciously want, which is the goal that you're constantly thinking about. You know what I'm saying? I'm always fucking going off on tangents. Where was I at? Motor, pain, pleasure centers. Instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as is done in hypnosis. Yeah, so hypnosis completely shuts off that, like, it can't be you consciously telling yourself that. Hypnosis, like, passes the conscious, goes straight to the subconscious. This is your conscious acknowledging your subconscious. Instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as is done, or largely bypassing and ignoring it as is done in transcendental meditation, Biofeedback teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize the desired result and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex pain or pleasure or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired result. So that's all, speaking like visualizing exactly how it would feel like, you know what I mean? The more you can see it, the clearer the picture, the closer you are. Special self-monitoring devices such as a digital thermometer are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right. They're saying there's some devices that do this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are. So special self-monitoring devices such as the digital thermometer are used to inform the left brain. Okay. Once this is done, the left brain can then repeatedly instruct the right brain to reestablish the pathways involved so as to produce the same external and objective measures of success. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized to such an extent that left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas in the right brain using a conscious demand mode. So it's like basically it's like the more you believe it, the better it works. Like that's why you got to believe in yourself, you know what I'm saying? That's what it's about. For example, they got an example. They're going to give you a better example than me because I'm not really the best with my words. If the subject wishes to increase the circulation in the left leg in order to speed up healing, he may concentrate with his left brain on achieving that result while carefully monitoring a digital thermometer connected to the left leg. But also simultaneously, if you imagine pain, you can have phantom pain. You know what I mean? A pain that isn't there. It's the same thing, but that works in a positive way too. When the concentrated effort begins to achieve success, the digital thermometer will register an increase in the temperature of the left leg. At that point, the subject can mentally associate the sensation experienced with the result achieved and begin to emphasize by memory recall the same process to cause its strengthening by affirmation and repetition. In this way, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors can apparently be suppressed and ultimately destroyed, the body's pleasure centers can be stimulated, and a variety of specific psychological results may be achieved. In addition, biofeedback may be used to greatly accelerate achievement of deep meditative states, particularly for beginners who have no experience in meditative techniques and whose progress in that methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external objective affirmation. Yeah. So that always made a lot of sense to me. But there is something about it not being like when you go to school, like, yeah, they don't really, I don't know, it's hard to believe in stuff like that. I always believed a big part of healing and stuff like that is mental state. Like, obviously, if you tell, like, there's so much truth to this shit. Like, I always believed it. That's what I'm saying. Display of the subject's brainwave pattern on a... But one thing, real quick before I go on, one thing that was interesting, they were talking about the thermometer attached to his leg and said that it heats up. I don't know anything about that, but that's very interesting if that's true. Like, It would make sense because heat is generated by moving particles, right? It's like when there's movement, heat is created. So if you're concentrating, if that area is really focused on healing, it would make sense it would heat up. It wouldn't get cold, for example. That'd be the opposite. Like if it slowed down healing, like if you were dead, then it'd be cold. But since it's in overdrive healing, it would make sense that there would be heat being generated in that area. Just based on like how heat works. Display of the subject's brainwave pattern on a cathode ray tube has proven to be a laboratory validated means by which subjects may quickly learn to place themselves in profoundly relaxed states characterized by the sort of quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditation. So, yeah, that's kind of talking about tricking yourself into meditating, I think. So they're saying with that you could look at your brainwave patterns on a screen, I guess, and that could help you relax. I think that's what they're saying. I don't know. I'm a little confused. I don't know what a cathode ray tube is. That's the only thing about that part. Yeah, in some of these words, it might be like, okay, you obviously don't know what the fuck these words are. Like, I feel like I'm still getting, like, the idea of what they're saying. Like, alright, gateway and hemisync. I guess we're gonna finally get to the point of this gateway shit. Now that we have briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering or expanding consciousness, which share some of the objective and or methods employed in the gateway experience, we may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Okay, cool. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemisphere so as to alter consciousness. Moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. Okay, alright. Sounds good to me. The participant, again, imagine this is what your job entails. Like, anyway, the participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. So basically, if you understand the concept of like the Akashic records, it's an ancient Egyptian, I think, concept. Speaking of this shared knowledge we all have access to, but you have to tap into it, and you tap into it through some meditative type shit. I'm pretty sure it was talked about first in those emerald tablets. I'm not exactly positive. It's been a while since I like read anything about the Akashic records and stuff like that, but it's interesting that they say that, because they're saying right as you tap into this state, you gain access to everything the universe offers. That's kind of what the Akashic records is. It's this shared knowledge, but you have to tap into it. So I wonder if they're going to tell us how they get there. Like, how they did this. Because is this theory? Because it doesn't sound like theory. Like, this is interesting as fuck. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, what differentiates the gateway experience from forms of meditation is its use of the hemisync technique, which is defined in a monograph by Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Jagger as a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. Although hemisync seems to be rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Jagger states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain hemisync with the Institute's basic Focus 3 tapes. Okay, so they're saying through tapes they're able to fucking emulate or induce this state, but the state can't be kept. She also notes that studies conducted by Elmer and Elise Green at the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes. That's pretty cool. So these must have been the people always studying the fucking monks, because you'll see these videos of monks with like fucking shit strapped to their heads and shit, and you're like, who the fuck is out here studying these monks? Is it the fucking CIA, I guess? Dr. Stuart Twemlow, a psychiatrist and a research associate at the Monroe Institute, reports that in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on brainwaves, we have found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as single-mindedness, or we may translate that as keeping a tunnel vision if you're from the streets like me. Anyway, Dr. Free Kodak, by the way. Shouts out Kodak. Like, it's not free Kodak anymore because he's free, but thank God Kodak's free. Yeah, Dr. Twemlow goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tapes beyond Focus 3, there is a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. Okay. So that's pretty interesting. They've found ways to do this. So, yeah. Lamp versus laser. Melissa Jagger uses a metaphor to help clarify the processes involved in the use of hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp, which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way which diffuses its energy over a wide area of rather limited depth. Okay. The human mind. That's an interesting way to put it. On the other hand, the human mind under the discipline of hemisync acts after the fashion of a laser beam which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. The stream projected with a total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times. What? Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both, so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. That's very interesting, because basically they're saying a lot of shit here, but they're saying there's more to perceive, essentially, which I don't even gotta give examples. I'm sure you, like, anyone who's into this type of shit, like, you know, gods and all that shit, they're on other planes. They're higher up in the universe than us. It's like a fourth dimension or whatever, or fifth dimension, a dimension we can't perceive, but it still exists. But since we're only in the third dimension, we can't perceive a fourth one. How could we, you know? It's also interesting, when I was like looking into some of the Kundalini stuff, I was watching a lot about like I don't know if it's even Hinduism, but like the Vedic texts or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's what Hinduism is based on, I think, is those texts, the Vedic texts. But they I was watching videos and they were speaking about the universe, and they have like a model of the universe, what they think it looks like and stuff, and it's just really interesting when you take this into account, like, because they would mention that when you're a more ascended person or whatever, it's like when you close your eyes or something, you can hear when you close your ears, you can hear the oceans, and like the oceans are like this other plane, and like apparently, like when you're ready to go to this other higher plane, it's like you can see the mountains, and it's like, I think what they're trying to say, it's like space wouldn't be so empty because there's things there if you're able to see them, but if you're not, then space is just empty. But some people, like when they're ready to go to the next phase or whatever, like in death or whatever, like I'm not an expert on this shit, but like they see like mountains and beautiful, like, and also like that same thing's reflected in this concept of like the summer lands, which is like a concept I think in like occult shit or like witchcraft or something, or Wiccan or whatever you call it, which is like this area beyond life that's like, it's just good and peaceful and beautiful, and it's like, but it's like another dimension. Like there's so many examples of it throughout like everything, but yeah, like I said, I always go on random fucking rants, and this just makes me think of all that, because it's like, it's basically saying once you can get into this state, you can go to some other shit. Like, it literally fucking it's talking about time. Where the fuck did it say it? More sophisticated is ordinary. I don't know. It said it earlier. Time and fucking space. It was like, what? But yeah, such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic intuition, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and oral perception. So that's not oral. That's like oral, I think. The mechanics by which the mind exercises the consciousness function will be addressed in detail later in the paper. Yeah, this though. Oh yeah, it was up here that it was talking about the time and spaceship, but this is just saying this lamp versus laser. I don't know what it's talking about the fucking sun. It's saying this laser concentrated is hotter than the sun. Like, what? They're speaking of a literal laser. Like, what? I don't understand that. That's the one thing I don't get here. Yeah. I'm gonna watch this video after, and then I'm gonna I'll probably, like, get it more. This is literally my first time reading this. I just decided to record it. Honestly, I don't even know if it's, like, working. I didn't even do a test recording, so I'm just hoping this is all fucking recorded fine, because this is the fucking knowledge y'all need. This shit right here, they're not gonna teach you this. Frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, the hemisync techniques takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequencies which approximates brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to the theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist. Okay. As the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one with the person hears. Oh, that's a continuation. Since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. So this is definitely where these binaural fucking beat shit came from. Which is interesting because there's always that shit's pseudoscience because there's no real basis. But I guess this is the most basis of evidence you're gonna get for it, is the CIA having this document. But other than that, there's like no mention of this shit anywhere. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself of the FFR phenomena and using the technique of beat frequencies. The gateway system uses hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomena to induce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemisphere into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitudes and frequency of brainwave output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask the sound of frequencies where desirable. So like you play this shit in the background of like some fucking sea waves, some easy calming shit. Make it easier to digest, for your subconscious to digest. Because your subconscious, you really gotta trick that motherfucker sometimes, you know what I'm saying? You're smarter than you think. Your conscious brain is always on, unless you're focused on something or you're like asleep. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access via intuitive means new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. That's interesting. This is basically all talking about hypnosis tapes and binaural beats and shit like that. I actually quit smoking with that. I mean, I didn't like. I still like if I were to go out and have some drinks, I would have a cigarette. Like if I was with friends and one of them smoked and like we were out smoking, I'd probably ask for a cigarette and smoke it, just like because we're partying or whatever. But like, not that we would be doing that because, you know, the current state of the world. But like, yeah, I actually quit. I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke every day, like constantly, like multiple cigarettes a day. Like I need a cigarette all the time, every like 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I couldn't quit. But then I started using these like tapes to. It wasn't specifically a quit smoking tape. It was a tape that was supposed to like help me. I don't remember what exactly it was supposed to do, but whatever it did, it fucking worked, because literally I just stopped smoking. Like, and I don't know how much of that was me, but regardless, it doesn't really matter because I got the result. And I know that before that, I was definitely like constantly like really hard on cigarettes, so it just worked. But I get the feeling, you know, this wouldn't work on everyone because not everyone can let their shit down, but you know, that's not really true. You know, it's another interesting example of this, I think, is if you look into like Mike Tyson and how his shit with his trainer used to like get him to listen to these tapes that would basically like hypnotize him into thinking he was like a monster, so he was able to like destroy anything in his way. And Mike Tyson talks a lot about that. So, you know, if you want to look into that, go check him out. He got his podcast and everything. Yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely something to this. And then even with music, like people are always saying, like, you know, you listen to shitty music, like it's not good for you, and you're gonna make bad decisions. And even me as an adult who listens to some pretty hardcore music about shooting and killing people and doing bad shit, like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes, you know, you feel like doing some bad shit when you listen to that music. Like, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to this. Roles of resonance. Wait, did I finish reading this? Tools, yeah. But this is also saying repetitive use of the tapes as to access. That's kind of why I started going on that rant, because like, yeah, I definitely feel like if you were listening to those tapes while you were doing something over and over, it would probably definitely help you learn what you're doing, help with you remembering and stuff like that. Or if you were to be playing these tapes maybe when you're asleep and you were having certain messages put into them, like the Mike Tyson example, instead of them saying that you're like a killer and all this, you could get them saying that, like, you know, you're a nice guy, you are a good person, you are strong, you can do it, you can do what you believe in, you will, you know what I mean? Like, you could, that makes sense. But yeah, roles of resonance. However, brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why the gateway system works. Okay, so that's not the whole picture. That's only part of it. Okay. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditative states, which brings about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is the aorta forks to go into the legs. Which is where it forks to go into the legs. Part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. Okay. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce a interference pattern. Okay. So that's really explaining why, like, an irregular heart in disharmony with itself causes problems. And I'm gonna assume maybe that's how blood clots are made or something. I don't know. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. If you're constantly stressed out, your heart rate's just slowly, it's beating harder. It's a hard life, so it's beating harder, and in that hardness, it's kind of beating too hard, and that's causing some disharmony in your body, which is causing some physical symptoms. The result is a regular rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. But this is talking about if you're able to cancel that, placing the body's sleep-like state, bifurcation fades away, heart rate lessens, force. The result is a regular rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound, which echoes through the body and rises up into the head. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument is about, I gotta put a fucking a de-esser on this, 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it is operating normally. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern, which is measured with a sensitive. So you're producing more volume, literally, when your heart's like this, but that's how your heart is supposed to. Well, I don't know about supposed to, but this, because this is saying normally, but I guess in the normal state you start to die and shit, so yeah, I don't know. What's the normal state? These guys are like fucking Nerf from fucking Neon Genesis. The CIA just has all this. Like what? Brain stimulation. Bentov's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid filled third and left ventricles located above the brain stem. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated, which stimulates the brain to rise the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Just as Dr. Twemlow observed in his research on the effects of the hemisync tapes. Also, the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layer surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately that much in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, the entire body, based on its own micromotion, functions as a tuned vibrational system which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionospheric cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bentov states, this is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the parameter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. So I'm going to assume attenuate means deteriorate or like go down. Naturally, it will go through just about anything. I'm assuming it means go down based on how highly they're talking of it. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal. So basically, when our bodies are in the ideal state, they vibrate at this level to which you can be transferring your energy anywhere, to where if there was a way that telekinetic speaking or whatever would happen, this would probably be it. Consequently, the gateway process is designed rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system and to significantly lower blood pressure to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and all other physical organs to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. The resulting resonance sets up a regular, repetitive sound wave which propagates in consonance with the electrostatic field of the Earth. So their little thing, their hemisphere shit, basically, it puts you in this vibratory state, which is pretty interesting. I'm trying to think, do I want to keep going with this or do I want to do like a part 2? Because there's 29 pages. I think it might be smart to do a part 2 because honestly, it is a lot. But at the same time, we couldn't just sit down here and I'll go through the whole fucking thing. And if anyone watches the whole thing, then my fucking watch time is gonna go up like crazy. So, but with that being said, I need some water. This is some interesting shit. I want y'all to leave what y'all think below in the comments. I need a second opinion on this. This is crazy. This is crazy. We got 29 pages. So it's a lot. But that's okay. I've done streams for 4 hours. I can fucking do this. Energy entrainment. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium. Is it coherent? Okay, so as the body is turned into a coherent oscillator vibrating in harmony with the the specific exercises included in the Gateway tapes enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now entraining because of its ability to resonate with it. Okay. Presumably by using energy from the Earth's field. This puts the body's energy field into a homogeneity with its surrounding environment and promotes movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic medians are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude so as to entrain anal is lit, frequencies in the universe for data collection also promotes enhancements of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement, which he is ready to do so. Movement when he is ready to do so. More will be said about this topic later. Ominous. I like to always say ominous, because I like Portal 2. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communicating activity with other human minds similarly tuned. I just want to say, Annalie Choppa knew about all this. Annalie Choppa been saying this shit. Y'all didn't listen to Annalie Choppa. Okay? He's been saying this shit. Now, he did go a little far the theories regarding the current pandemic and whatnot, but sometimes you get lost in the sauce, you know? It happens. And Lee Choppa was on the right path, he knows. Consciousness and energy. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind... This is so much shit. Like, I feel like I'm gonna be a different person by the end of this. I'm gonna be just so woke, you know? Like, just so woke. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which that consciousness operates, to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point which needs to be made is that the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know it. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both the electrons, which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of the atom, and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids, which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, Isaac Bentov gives the following figures. The energy grid which composes the nucleus of the atom vibrates at approximately 10 to 2 square, hertz, which means 10 followed by 2 zeros. Okay, thank you for explaining that, because I had no idea. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10-15 hertz. An entire molecule composed of a number of atoms bound together in a single energy field vibrates in the range of 10-9 hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10-3 hertz. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all that is, like the universe which surrounds him, nothing more and nothing less, though there are nothing more and nothing less than an extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. The so-called states of matter are actually variances in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest, in a manner described in the following paragraph. So they're about to really break down the fucking universe for us, y'all, okay? So we're about to get into it. We're about to fucking get deep into this shit. So before we fucking get deep into this shit, I'm gonna smoke a little bit of shatter and probably get my YouTube video demonetized. Hopefully not. Shh. Yeah, because we're about to really get into it, y'all. So I just gotta prepare. Matter of fact, we're scrolling up. Don't read ahead, y'all. Wait for me. We're getting into it. I'm coming through with the truth today. I can release this video and be happy I told y'all the truth, according to the CIA. And like, I'm just gonna say all of this stuff is lining up with exactly like my idea of what I thought, how I thought things work, based on things I've been reading. Like, it all started with me when I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger. I ended up having a warrant out for my arrest. I went a little bit crazy, and in that time I started watching a lot of crazy videos. It was all those videos talking about like Hollywood, evil, blood sacrifice, adrenochrome, all this crazy, like whatever. And anyway, I became a born again Christian, and like, because I had like legal troubles, and it was this mess. But I ended up really starting to look into like, what does life mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because when I was reading the Bible and shit, I was like, okay, this, I don't know, you know, I'm not, like, there's no way I can ever know the truth. I'm just a person, you know what I mean? But as I was reading it, I was like, there is definitely something to this. And then as time went on, I just got into other things, and I've just really been trying to build my understanding of how things work and stuff like that. Like, I don't know why, but I just feel like it's important for me to do. So I've been doing that since I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I'm 24 now. And I don't know, all this is pretty much lining up with what I thought. But also, you got to take into account, this was released in 2003. A lot of the shit that I've learned most likely got its information from stuff like this. So it would make sense why I would have a bias of thinking like, oh yeah, this aligns with my ideologies. But this also seems to be aligning with ideologies of like everything, because if you look at all the religions and stuff like that, like, they're all talking about the same shit, they're just naming it different things. And like, all the religions are getting like that origin story. It's like this ancient it's like a Sumerian story or something, and then it's like that story was translated into this language and that language, and this culture took it and they created these gods and these gods, but it's all coming from just this like one story. And then some people are saying that story is just about the planets, and it's like there's really no way of knowing. But all those things, they seem to be talking about the same stuff, and now like obviously the CIA is on board with that way of thinking. But yeah, with that being said, let me just grab my blowtorch real quick, because we're doing dabs. Any scientists watching this are probably like, why does this young man have a fucking blowtorch in his living area? What the fuck? We're about to expand our consciousness, y'all. We're about to expand our fucking consciousness. Alright. Alright. I just needed that. I needed that to help me cope with all this crazy shit the CIA is telling me right now. Alright, y'all. Sorry about that. I would edit that out, but Currently, I don't have my Adobe subscription running because I forgot to pay for it and I'm just lazy. So I'm just using OBS, so I can't edit. But who knows? This video might not come out, so I might touch it up. So that part might not even be in. But anyway, we're coming to this next point here. So, yeah, everything's an energy field. Entire universe, energy fields. Solid matter doesn't exist. Theoretically, I could go through this if all the atoms were arranged correctly. Okay. Holograms. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov, in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by this simultaneous entry of the 3 pebbles radiates outward towards the rim of the bowl, Bentov further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. These guys really love fucking lasers. The result, I bet it's a laser as hot as the sun. The result will be a 3-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye when the glass of water itself is examined. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists since the underlying mathematical principles were worked out by Dennis Gaber in 1947. He later won a Nobel Prize for his work. A laboratory demonstration of Gaber's work only occurred years later following invention of the laser. As biologist Lyle Watson explained, the purest kind of light available to us is that produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency, like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off an object such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face. The record. The recording, you mean? How do these guys talk so weird sometimes? Yeah, imagine the answer is you get so woke that you're no longer just here in this universe. You suddenly you're like, whoa, I get it now, and you just turn into a laser beam and you're just laser beam out of existence and then become like a fucking god or whatever. Yeah. The part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be this resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before it's agitated by the pebbles, represents energy at a state of rest. To activate, or in effect to perceive the meaning of a holograph, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by interaction between the moving energy and the energy at rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interference pattern in front of the coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin, tells us, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate. Okay. The consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. Where was I? Oh yeah. It is in and of itself one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. So these guys are into the simulation theory, it sounds like. According to the theories of Karl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we call consciousness. With respect to the states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the process operates in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being conveyed are projected upon the electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with and therefore read the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it. Conveyed. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field, which comprises the human mind, determine the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmission of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives as psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. That's like some that you're in the Matrix thinking, but like Why would so many people be in the same one? You know what I mean? Like, the universe is so big. Why would all people just end up on one planet? And it's like their minds are just like, oh yeah, this is what reality is because we've been told so. Like, like, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. This shit's crazy. Like, to be honest with you, obviously take all of this with a grain of salt, but at the same time, I keep an open mind. It could be true. It could be true. I don't doubt that we perceive things and it's like, but I guess, consciousness would perceive the brain. Yeah, that makes sense. Because what came first? Obviously, consciousness would have had to come before the brain. Because the physical universe, something came before it, so something would have had to come before your physical universe started. Which was maybe your will to be here. I don't know. Brain in phase. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with three-dimensional grid system. If we picture the holographic with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, such that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data to a two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists support that the human mind operates on a simple binary go/no-go system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information, it wishes to interpret and reduce that information mathematically to two-dimensional form. It can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by the hand of man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Bentov states the proposition this way. Our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons whenever we perceive something. We always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, nonlinear, and nonverbal mode of function, acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while operating in phase or coherence with the right brain. The left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. Evaluation. To the extent that Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement in energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness to that. It can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram, not of course accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement in the energy matrix of the mind. It succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse. The intercession of the physical senses. such that ever more of the universal hologram, not, of course, can ultimately. So basically, with their shit, you're able to see more. You can perceive higher holograms. This is a big ass explanation for the hologram thing, and it makes sense they would have to explain that, but I got like bad fucking ADD, so it's like I almost fell asleep reading that shit. Yeah. Appear to the extent has written that the theories of Pribram and Bohm appear to account for all transcendental experiences, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say of Pribram, currently he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as part of nature. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes more sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. I think so too, I agree. Self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspects of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-cognition. So what makes us different? Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative... Oh, this is the conscious energy grid that I was speaking of earlier. Like, this is the reality of it, but we perceive it as essentially... Well, we perceive it as three-dimensional because we have two eyes, but we, like, yeah. Fuck. I got lost. So, self-cognition, talking about what makes us different. What was the last thing? Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment evaluating the functioning of their thought processes against various objective standards they have adopted. So we're able to like bounce our ideas like, is what I did correct? Or was that wrong? What would this guy do? Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect, where its evaluation standards of measure are stored, of its own hologram, and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry, and then binary go/no-go pulse to yield the verbal cognition about the self. So basically what I just did there, it just literally broke that all down. Yeah. Time-space dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Yeah, okay, I'd say. Now the fun begins. I just want to add also, now the paper's going sideways, so after this point, this man's reaching madness. He's writing this shit sideways at this point. He's about to fucking crack open the fucking seal. He's gonna fucking let us know. What's the point? So yeah, it's been easy to follow. I hope you guys agree. Now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task which must be addressed. To do this, we must first appreciate that time and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. They are in order, so we need those to understand. In other words, it is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, so time and space is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern, so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location which is distinguishable from other locations. That's space. Energy which is not confined is force without limit. Without dimension, without the limits of form, it is infinity, cannot move because there is nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if energy is in the state of infinity, then there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end, no location. It is conscious force, the fundamental primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the created universe, but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Okay. So, energy in infinity is at rest. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the universe. So basically, it can perceive the universe, things in the universe can't perceive it. So does that mean that ghosts really are watching me right now? Oh God. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute, the source, the beginning, what we all come from. What was it called? The monad. That's what they called it. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existences are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. So that's another thing about those Vedic texts. They were like, remember I said you could see the mountains, all that. There's different levels to it and shit. Theoretically, these Vedic texts really talk about, like, people don't know. Hinduism is the oldest religion. Like, those texts, they talk about some shit, like, and it's like, it's really interesting. Yeah, anyway, energy, the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existences are various dimensions. Theoretically, human consciousness may this is the only time they're fucking saying theoretically to the whole thing. Human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimensions of the absolute, at which point perception stops because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. Holy fuck. That blows my mind. What if, like, we're looking to become gods, we finally become a god, and in becoming a god, the universe no longer can be perceived, so we're basically just dead. Because the one way, that doesn't matter how you get back to the source, it's the same thing. So it doesn't matter if you just were shot in the street and went back there, or if you fucking became scientists, travel the universe, ascend, fucking vibrate at the right frequency. Like, it doesn't matter. Whoa. I don't know if that's even exactly what they're saying, but well, they're saying theoretically. Intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, i.e. without boundaries, it occupies every dimension to include the time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything, as do many of the intervening gradients or dimensions through which the energies of our universe pass on their to and from their home in the state of infinity, the absolute. I call it the source because that's what I always know it as, the state of nothing, that we all come from and will return to. To enter those intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy patterns, which, although maybe, you know what, maybe there's like, it's there's always to it. You die, you go there, or you get too high up, you go there. There's boundaries, you know what I'm saying, to existence. It's like there's a ceiling / floor you can hit. It's essentially the same thing. You know, one's just at the top, one's at the bottom. Yeah. Overlays everything, gradients. To enter those intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern which comprises that consciousness, i.e. the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, would look virtually like a solid line. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time-space dimensions because of the operation of a principle in physics known as Planck's distance. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest, which constitute the boundaries of each individual oscillation, i.e. movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillation wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. But it is also true that when for an infinitesimally brief instant that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest, it clicks out of time and space and joins infinity. This is that concept in physics where something could theoretically, given enough time, just phase out of existence. I'm pretty sure that's what they're talking about. No, I'm no physicist. I only got my grade 10. Okay. I think that's what they're talking about, though. Alright. Clicks out of time and space, joins infinity. See Exhibit 3, next page. Let's check that out real quick. Hey, remember what I just said? It's like there's a top and a bottom, and they're both the same. Like there's a ceiling, you know? You phase out of existence. You get too high, boop. You get too low, you know? I don't know. Anyway, where were we at with that? Fuck, where were we at? Pattern would be impossible. Click out. Where clicks out? I literally, like... How did I lose where we were completely? Like a solid line. Blanks. This example... Complete rest. Boundaries. Wave pattern would be impossible. Clicks out of time and space. Okay. Infinity. That critical step out of time and space occurs when the speed of the oscillation drops below 10 minus 33, or I'm not even going to say that. I'll just say this, whatever this means, because I don't know. I'm not good at math. Centimeters per second. Planck's distance. To use the words of Bentov, quantum mechanics tell us that when distances go below Planck's distance, which is we enter, in effect, a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the pattern of clickouts comes so close together that there is virtual no continuity to it. To return to the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such a high frequency that the pattern of clickouts comes so close together that there is virtually no continuity to it. Then a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection function in those dimensions located between time, space, and the absolute. Thus, as the almost continuous clickout pattern establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time and space after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. What? Okay. The gateway experience with its associated hemisync technique is apparently designed. Didn't you guys fucking design it? Is apparently designed if used systematically and patiently to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speeds below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is exercising his consciousness while in his physical body or whether he is doing so after having separated that consciousness from the physical body, i.e. the so-called out-of-body experience mentioned earlier. So are they speaking of like making an out-of-body experience by emulating this? And you saying you don't need training? if you just use the technique. I think. I don't know. Subatomic particles. The behavior of subatomic particles provides an interesting example of the phenomena of clicking out, discussed in the preceding paragraphs. In an article prepared for Science Digest magazine, Dr. John Glidman mentions the way in which subatomic particles communicate with each other once their energy fields become entrained as a result of colliding with each other. The communication concerned is, of course, postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase in the oscillation of the energy fields, compromising the subatomic particle. The communication concerned is, of course, postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase in the oscillation of the energy fields, compromising the subatomic particles concerned. It is this cause which accounts for the cross-communication as at what, in terms of time-space velocities, would seem to involve speed in excess of light. In reality, Einstein's theory of relativity is not being invalidated, but rather the communicated concerned is taking place outside the dimension of time-space, to which the theory of relativity is strictly confined. These guys are dissing Einstein. Specifically, Dr. Glidman tells us quantum theory postulates. I need to fucking look up what postulates fucking means, like, real quick. Suggests, okay. Why the fuck can't they just say that? Like, okay, so quantum theory suggests. Like, why would you put that? Who the fuck knows what postulates means? Kind of long range Siamese twin effect. I guess they're trying to weed out the people that aren't educated, maybe, I guess. They're like, yo, you can't read? Okay, fuck you, you don't know what we're saying. Whenever two subatomic particles collide and then go their two different ways. Wait. Quantum theory suggests a kind of long-range Siamese twin effect whenever two subatomic particles collide and then go their different ways. Okay. They are still connected even when they're across the universe. Even when the particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says they are instantaneously to respond to each other's actions. And in doing so, they violate relativity's ban on faster than light velocities. Whoa. So that's why they're dissing Einstein, because they're saying it is possible for something to travel quicker than the speed of light. And that's something that's connected. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known about the behavior of energy in dimensions apparently outside of time and space, Bentov speaks about courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles called tachyona, which can move at speeds higher than light. The speed of, I called them tachyons. The speed of tachyons starts just above the speed of light and ranges all the way to infinite velocities. So there's some daring physicists out here trying to create this hypothetical particle. I wonder if that has anything to do with CERN. I don't know. Because they do particle acceleration there. Dimensions in between. Now that we have postulated the legitimacy of assertion that the energy forms which compose consciousness can move beyond the time-space dimension, we need to turn our attention to the energy forms which inhabit those dimensions between time-space and the absolute. So this is probably where ghosts are and shit. In doing so, we may better perceive the form that reality assumes when we encounter it in those intermediate dimensions. In this context, Bentov tells us that the causal relationship between events breaks down. Movements become jerky rather than smooth. Okay, hold up. We may better perceive the form that reality assumes when we perceive it in those dimensions. The causal relationship between events breaks down. Movement becomes jerky rather than smooth. Time and space may become grainy or chunky. Perhaps a piece of space can be traversed by a particle of matter in any direction without necessarily being synchronized with a piece of time. In short, a pair of events will occur in either time or space, the pair not being connected causally, but by a random fluctuation. Try and wrap your head around that. What Bentov means is that inside the dimension of time-space where both concepts apply in a generally uniform way, there is a proportional relationship between them. A certain space can be covered by energy moving in either particle or waveform in a certain time, assuming a specific velocity virtually anywhere in the time-space universe. The relationship is neat and predictable. However, in the intermediate dimensions beyond time and space, the limitations imposed on energy to put it into a state of oscillating motion are not uniform as they are in our physical universe. A myriad of various distortions and incongruities are thus likely to be encountered, such that our nice, neat assumptions concerning the relationship between time and space as we know it in this dimension do not apply. But even more important, access is open to both the past and the future when the dimension of current time-space is left behind. Access is open both to the past and the future. Okay, but even more important, yeah, that does sound important. Okay. Here's an interesting thing. A thought, just a random thought I'm having. Like, let's say that somebody else was experiencing hallucinations, all that shit, and they're not. They are mentally ill, but also they're in this little between dimension. We could still perceive them here. So is it like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but they're perceiving something else. I'm not even saying that's necessarily an example. I have no idea if, mental health would, like, somebody who's experiencing hallucinations, schizophrenia is like, I don't know. I'm just saying. Or if you're on shrooms or something, you're seeing other shit that's not there, but other people can still see you here. It's not like you're gone, But you aren't experiencing what they are. And they aren't experiencing what you are, but they can see you and you can see them. But even if you couldn't see them, they could still see you. But anyway, even more important is the fact that once you get out of this shit, future and the past are readily accessible. Okay, special status, out of body experience. Although human consciousness can, with enough practice, move beyond the dimension of time space and interface with other energy systems in other dimensions, the entire process is appreciably enhanced if that consciousness can be detached in large measure from the physical body before such interface is attempted. Once an individual becomes proficient in the technique of out-of-body movement and then reaches the point where he is able to break out of time-space while out of his body, he gains the advantage of clicking out, part of his enhanced consciousness while starting from a base located much closer to the dimension with which he wishes to communicate. In other words, since he is starting from a point much higher up, to use an analogy from the time-space context, that part of his consciousness involved in clicking out will have that much more time to interact in dimensions beyond space and time because less time is required to traverse the intervening layers. Moreover, once the individual is able to project his consciousness beyond space and time, that consciousness would logically tend to entrain its frequency output with the new energy environment to which it is exposed, therein greatly enhancing the extent to which the individual's altered consciousness may be further modified to achieve a much heightened point of focus and a much refined oscillating pattern. As a result, a self-reinforcing process should ensue whereby the farther consciousness is the out-of-body state can be projected beyond the time-space dimension, the more its level of energy output would be advanced, thus promoting the potential for still further travel. These guys are assuming a whole lot. The tentative, like, what if you're out there floating in the universe and you decide you're scared, then what? It's like, no, you'll adjust, you'll be good. We think. The tentative conclusion to be drawn is that the out-of-body state may be regarded as an extremely effective way of accelerating the process of enhancing consciousness and of interfacing with dimensions beyond time and space. If the practitioner of the gateway technique has a choice of concentrating on achieving and exploiting the out-of-body experience as opposed to concentrating his full efforts on expanding his consciousness exclusively from a physical base, the former would appear to promise a much faster and impressive success than the latter. So basically that's saying if you could just get to that state, just do it. Fuck worrying about getting there. Like, basically, if you want to just do DMT, go do the fucking DMT. Don't spend fucking 20 years meditating to get there. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying that. That's what they're saying. And that's not exactly what they're saying, but that's my interpretation of what they're saying. It may be helpful at this point to pause and recap. I would say so. I'd say we're about halfway done. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, if you want to pause and recap, pause the video or run that shit back, and then come back once you're good and you kind of digested that, because I don't blame you if you're a little confused about that, or it's a lot to take in, because I've been hearing speak of all this shit for years now, so it's like a little easier to digest. It still kind of overwhelms me, but it definitely takes a while to get used to. But that being said, if you rewinded the video and you're back, you know what? I think I'm going to pee real quick before we continue. Be right back. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, we're back. I peed. All that. So I just realized I could pause the recording, so I think I might actually just pause the recording again so I can fucking smoke. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, we're back. Back at it. And I'm shirtless. Yeah, I'm very skinny. I'm a skinny boy. Yeah, alright, so it may be helpful at this point to pause and recap the major aspects of our intellectual journey from time and space to the realm of the absolute. So yeah, like I said, if you have any problem, pause, go back. But we're gonna keep going, because we are ready, you know. We have spoken at some length concerning the incredibly complex hologram, which is created by the intersection of energy patterns generated by the totality of all dimensions of the universe, time and space included. Okay, we have spoken incredible complex hologram, which is created by the... Okay. We have noted that our minds constitute energy fields which interact with various aspects of this hologram to deduce information which is ultimately processed through the left hemisphere of our brains to reduce it to a form that we employ for the process we call thinking. The process we call thinking. We employ for the process we call thinking. We have implied that this hologram is the finite embodiment in active energy form of the infinite consciousness of the absolute. It is the title we assign to that vast pool of energy in a state of perfect rest over which the physical universe is layered, and from whence it comes. Speaking of the absolute, or as I call it, the source, which I've gotten from various things. I don't even remember where I got that name from, but incidentally, to describe this, Bentov uses the analogy of a very deep sea. There's a lot of people that use that same analogy of the deep sea. That people say that's why the Bible is like talking about the ocean, and there's this Leviathan, this big ocean monster. It's a monster in the darkness, which is the ocean, which is the unknown, which is like some deep shit. Carl Jung is into that too. Yeah. In Carl Jung's idea, it's like you go over to the darkness, and that's the unknown, but that's where creativity and various things come from. It's like, yeah, it's cool. Comparing the still depths of the sea to the dimension of the absolute while assigning the storm-tossed waves to represent the physical universe with which we are familiar, the slightly agitated currents of the sea to be found in between the turbulent forces and the still depths represent energy in the process of either going into rest, i.e. approaching infinity, or coming out of rest. Yeah. From Big Bang to Taurus. Working from the widely accepted Big Bang theory, Bentov presents a conceptual model to depict the process of time-space evolution. Time-space evolution, the relative position. Depicts the process of time-space evolution, the relative position of the universal hologram. I don't know if I'm just reading that wrong, but I don't understand the grammar. Time-space evolution, the relative position. Okay, let me read that one more time. Working from the widely accepted Big Bang Theory, Bentov presents a conceptual model to depict the process of time-space evolution. Like, I feel like there's a word missing, like, to the relative position of the universal hologram. Like, why? Why is there so many errors? This is the CIA. That hologram is often called a torus. I've never heard it referred to as that before. I think in the Vedic things they called it they either called it Brahma or Brahman or something, and it was like the universe like that we're in, that we perceive. Anyway, that hologram is often called torus because it is thought to have the overall shape of an immense self-contained spiral. Basing his thesis on recent studies concerning the distribution of quasars, quasi-stellar objects. The fuck does that mean? What is a quasi-stellar object? I guess it's like a really bright one, luminous. They're very luminous. Okay. Basing his thesis on concerning the distribution of and operating on the premise that in the universe smaller processes tend to mirror images on the larger ones, i.e. the pattern of electrons around the nucleus of an atom mirrors the way planets orbit their suns, and so on. I always thought that was interesting too. Bentov suggests the following scenario. Taking his cue from the observed capability of quasars, which are these luminous space body things, like stars out there, they're very luminous, to eject enormously concentrated beams of matter from their interiors in a controlled, non-concentric version of the Big Bang. He envisions a similar process occurring in the generation of the universe. So this guy's about to fucking basically try and tell us how the universe started. Here's the fucking... I bet... Okay, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it right now. It's gonna say something about how the universe works. It's gonna say that it spins this way, but it gives the appearance that it spins this way. I don't know in what form it's gonna say that. It's gonna say something about that. I'm calling it right now. Point where flow of time-space returns. The cosmic egg. This is what they're proposing it looks like, the universe. I'm like going back and forth. I'm just like... Now I'm lost again. See Exhibit 4 next page. Where's Exhibit 4? Is that this? No, that's Exhibit 5. Where's Exhibit fucking 4? This? Jet of matter. Photograph of quasar, jet of matter, okay. Alright, anyway. Noting that these galaxies located to the north of our own galaxy are moving away faster than those located in the south, and that those in the east and west are demonstrably more distant, Bentov regards this as substantive evidence that the jet of matter which expanded into our universe has turned back upon itself, eventually forming an ovoid or egg shape. He sees matter in our universe entering the ovoid pattern following ejection from a nucleus composed of extremely compressed energy through a white hole. At the end of its trip to the far end of the ovoid, he sees it departing via a black hole. In such a model, time is observed to be a measure of the change which occurs as energy evolves into new, more complex forms as it progresses along the distance from the white hole side of the nucleus, around the shell of this cosmic egg, until it enters the black hole. In other words, as energy expelled from infinity and confined within the limits of the consciousness of the Absolute achieves form and motion following ejection from the white hole at the top of the egg, time begins as a measure of the cadence of this evolutionary movement as reality goes down the shell of the egg on its journey to the black hole at the far end. So that's that dude's take on the universe. I'd like to say I don't think there's any nobody really knows the answer to the universe or why it started. Like, there's so many theories and stuff, but really, if you really look into it, there's no solid, like, there's no way to know for sure. Like, and even to think that we could know is almost like funny, because there's no fucking way we could know. But yeah, there's tons of theories. Yeah. Our place in time. The observed distribution of galaxies suggests that our particular universe is located near the top of the egg at the point where matter begins to fall back on itself. It's just crazy though, because this is like the CIA's belief. They've done a lot of research. You know, like they put their resources into it, and this is the conclusion they've came up with based on everything. So yeah, anyway, the observed distribution of galaxies suggests that our particular universe is located near the top of the egg at the point where matter begins to fall back on itself, thus explaining the reason why the galaxies to the north are seen to be moving away more rapidly as they are caught up in the downturn of the stream of matter towards the far end of the cosmic egg. Okay. So, our galaxy is right here. The white hole. And this is the black hole, I'm assuming. You go. This is pretty crazy. I'm trying to wrap my head around it in like real time here. One thing I would like to say also is a bunch of people seem to state that we're at the end of our cycle or something. Like the universe, it's like this, like where it comes out and goes back in itself. That whole thing. but there's cycles to it, and apparently we're in the last cycle, and I think that's also what this is saying, because this is saying this is the point of beginning, and we're at the edge where it's about to go back within itself, which lines up with, like, for example, again, in Hinduism with the Vedic texts, they talk about the Kali Yuga, which is the final, like, end cycle. And then also there's, like, the Age of Aquarius, which is, like, there's various interpretations to what that could be, but there's pretty good case to be made that it means, like, we're in the final cycle again of the universe. That's kind of what this is saying, I think. Yeah. Where were we at? It said C Model 5. I just, like, go off. Oh, here we're way up here. Far end, layered over this cosmic egg, cosmic egg is the absolute, which sustains the radiating nucleus from which the original jet of matter issued forth. As the stream of matter moves around the ovoid towards its destination at the black hole, where it will be reabsorbed into the radiating nucleus and then the absolute. It generates the interference pattern within the cosmic egg, which constitutes the universal hologram of Taurus. So also, if you ever seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, we're about to all fucking get Instrumentality Project id. We're gonna all turn into goo. Yeah, generates universal torus. Since the torus is being simultaneously generated by matter in all the various phases of time, it reflects the development of the universe in the past, present, and future as it would be seen from our particular perspective in one phase of time. By reflecting on this model, it becomes possible to see how human consciousness brought to a sufficiently altered focus state could obtain information concerning the past, present, and future, since they all exist in the same universal hologram simultaneously. I can see what they're saying. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to understand what they're saying with that, but I can kind of see what they're saying. In the case of the future, because all of the consequences of the past and present can be seen coming together in the hologram, such that the future can be predicted or seen with total accuracy. Moreover, it is possible to see how the implosion of energy patterns would cross and recross to create an incredibly complex four-dimensional hologram or torus, in spiral shape in reflection of the multi-dimensional developing pattern of evolution. All of the movements of the energies which comprise the universe leave their mark and hence tell the story throughout time. That's crazy. So my music will really live on forever, according to the CIA. That's good. This video will live on forever. This moment we're sharing together. I'm happy. Quality of consciousness. We noted earlier that the out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness so that it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition or into other dimensions outside of time-space. Perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the universe. maybe go astral project and visit the aliens and the angels and the gestures. Consciousness is the organizing and sustaining principle that provides the impetus and guidance to bring and keep energy in motion within a given set of parameters so that a specific reality will result. When consciousness reaches a state of sophistication in which it can perceive itself, its own hologram, it reaches the point of self-cognition. Human beings have this form of elevated consciousness, as does the Absolute, but in case of the latter, it is a function of energy and its associated quality of consciousness in infinity, omniscience, and omnipotence in perpetual unity. So, is it saying only two things have that? Humans and the thing? Well, I mean, aliens would probably have it too. But it's saying, yeah, okay. That's interesting. That's like when people, it's low-key when you think about, when shit says, like, people are made in the image of God or whatever. It's like, think about that, you know what I'm saying? It's interesting if you look at the idea of Gnosticism. If you understand the story in that, it's just an interesting take on this. Humans come from the source, or the I think they even call it the absolute Gnosticism, actually. But humans come from that because basically that existed. Like the absolute, it existed, and there's another thing. It's hard to, what the fuck was it called? I have all this stuff actually opened up here. I was reading this shit. The Barbello, that's what they call it. Refers to the first emanation of God in several forms of Gnostic. It's the supreme female principle. It's like, how to fucking explain it. Do I have the thing? Yeah, the Apocryphy of John. It's like this book thing. It's so hard to explain. If you know what Gnosticism is and you know about these texts, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then I would suggest you just go look into it. I'm not an expert, but basically the way the story goes is the highest divine principle, the absolute, the monad. It's the infinite. It's everything. It produces from his thought a feminine divine entity named Barbello. She is described as the first thought and image of the monad. While Barbello is referred to as she is also described as both the primordial mother and father. She is regarded as the first man and described in various terms of androgyny. She is the first class of beings referred to as aeons, and exchanged between herself and the monad brings the other aeons into being. Okay? Additionally, the properties of light and mind are born from the monad's reflection on Barbello. Light is synonymous with Christ. These are like books that are supposed to be like lost chapters of the Bible or some shit. And then anyway, eventually they make Sophia. And Sophia goes and she accidentally disrupts the harmony by engaging in creation without the participation or consent of the infinite. So she was created by the infinite and its divine feminine counterpart, I guess you'd say. And then she went and created without the infinite and created this thing called Yaldabaoth, which is basically this fucking evil thing that created the physical universe that we live in, essentially, and it's like evil and wants us to stay here or something. It's really complicated, and it kind of gives me anxiety to read this stuff, not gonna lie, because at the end of it there's kind of something that it says that kind of is like, okay, what? That's unsettling. But yeah, she creates this thing, the Demiurge, and then she tries to hide it from the other gods or the Absolute or whatever the fuck. And then so because she hides it, the thing she creates, it's unaware of the higher world, so it thinks that the physical world is all that there is. So the physical creation, it thinks that's it. So she then, she repents or whatever, and then they try to help her, resolve the problem, because this kind of personifies these, concepts, right? And so basically they show an image of, during this process, they hear a voice, Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge, it hears a voice from the Absolute, and they're terrified by its voice, and it leaves a trace of an image of the spirit on the waters. So it leaves a trace of the Absolute on the waters above, that from the roof, form the roof of the realm, so I'm assuming the sky. So they showed the human blueprint, which is a reflection of the Absolute in the sky, and then this thing created humans according to this, and then it goes on to be about like the Garden of Eden, and there's a whole creation thing behind it. So, but then this is the curious part. Once you get to the end of this book, like, because there's various books, they're called the Nag Hammadi Library. Just look that up. They're lost. There's no way of telling, like, who knows, right? But at the end it says, anyone who shares these for personal profit will be cursed. So I'm not sure what that means, but I'm not sharing this for personal profit. Please do not. I am simply, I'm sharing this with you guys right now because I am reminded of it, because what we're reading. Because basically why I'm saying all that is, we are the only thing that are what did they call it? Self-cognition. The only thing with self-cognition is us and the universe. Or the Absolute, the source. That's why I'm saying that. I didn't tell you guys that for personal profit, so no curse. Yeah. But where were we at? Because I got lost again. I went a whole rant. Yeah, so when consciousness reaches a state, where was I? Which it can perceive itself, its own hologram, self-cognitions. Humans have this form, as does the Absolute. But in case of the latter, it is a function of energy, and because it's basically everything, okay. But we have it while we're humans. Why? Because well, according to that story that I was just telling you guys, we're born from that evil demiurge thing and the spirit of the one. So it's like we're physical and we're like that thing, but also within us we have the like light or whatever. So even if none of that's like literally true, it's still interesting that all these various things have all this like they're all kind of thinking the same shit, you know? Very interesting. When energy returns to a state of total rest within the absolute, it returns to continuum consciousness in the pool of limitless, timeless perception that resides there. Thus, the more complex an energy system in the material state, the more consciousness it possesses to maintain its reality. The more complex an energy system in the material state, the more consciousness it possesses to maintain its reality. So, yeah. I think if you're interested in this, I would definitely suggest to go check out that Gnostic stuff, because it also was saying that, like, I don't know, I think that it would be saying that that thing wants us trapped here or whatever. I'm not saying this is true, but it's just interesting. It's an interesting comparison. It's saying that thing wants us trapped here, and it would trap us here like with like sex and like pleasure and stuff like that, and it's like, and things that weigh you down. And there's emphasis on in a lot of spiritual things on things that weigh you down, and things that weigh you down keep you here in those concepts, just like this is saying. The more complex your physical shit going on is, the more you're rooted here. Our consciousness, therefore, is that differentiated aspect of the universal conscious which resides within the absolute. It accounts for the organization of the energy patterns which constitute our physical body, but is distinctively separate from and superior to it. Since consciousness exists quite apart from and outside of reality, beyond the bounds of time and space, it, like the absolute, has neither beginning nor end. Reality has both a beginning and an end, because it is bounded within time-space, but the fundamental quantum of energy and its associated consciousness is eternal. When reality ends, its constituent energy simply returns to infinity and the absolute. Consciousness and perspective. Having ascertained that human consciousness is able to separate from physical reality and interact with other intelligence in other dimensions within the universe, and that it is both eternal and destined for ultimate return to the absolute, we are faced with the question. So they're saying it's going to happen for sure. So what happens then? Since memory is a function of consciousness and therefore enjoys the same eternal character as the consciousness which accounts for its existence, it must be admitted that when consciousness returns to the absolute, it brings with it all the memories it has accumulated through experience and reality. The return of consciousness to the absolute does not imply an extinction of the separate entity which the consciousness organized and sustained in reality. So, does not imply an extinction of the separate entity with the consciousness. Does not imply an extinction of the separate entity which the consciousness organized and sustained in reality. Rather, it suggests a differentiated consciousness which merges with and participates in the universal consciousness and infinity of the absolute without losing the separate identity and accumulated self-knowledge which its memories confer upon it. What it does lose is the capability for generation of independent thought holograms, since that can be done only by energy in motion. In other words, it retains the power to perceive, but loses the power of will or choice. In exchange, however, this consciousness participates in the all-knowing infinite continuum of consciousness, which is a characteristic of energy in the ever-present. Consequently, it is accurate to observe that when a person experiences the out-of-body state, he is in fact projecting that eternal spark of consciousness and memory, which constitutes the ultimate source of his identity, to let it play in and learn from dimensions both inside and outside the time-space world in which his physical component currently enjoys a short period of reality. This is some heavy stuff. Gateway method. Having put the gateway experience in context by suggesting a structural outline of how and why it seems to work, and having shown what it is designed to achieve, the time has come to examine the specific techniques which comprise the gateway training process. So, it's just gonna get even crazier, apparently. These techniques... I don't know why I'm burping. Okay. These techniques are designed to enable the user of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states which can be achieved if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. The amount of time required to reach advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies with the individual. The sensitivity of his nervous system, his general state of mind, and the extent to which he may have previously developed facility in related techniques such as transcendental meditation are all pertinent factors affecting the speed at which he may expect to progress. The gateway process begins by teaching the individual participant to isolate extraneous concerns in a visualization device called an energy conversion box. Next, the participant is introduced to a method of encouraging his mind and body to strive to achieve a state of resonance through utterance of a single tone, a monotonous, protracted humming sound that sets up a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. He engages in this resonant tuning, as it is called, by humming along with a chorus of such sounds that are contained on the gateway tape. Following this, the participant is exposed to the gateway affirmation and is encouraged to repeat it to himself as he hears it repeated on the tape. This affirmation is a statement to the effect that the individual realizes that he is more than merely a physical body and that he deeply desires to expand his consciousness. Hemisync introduction. After that, he exposed for the first time to the hemisync sound frequencies and is encouraged to focus on and develop a perception of and appreciation for those feelings which accompany the synchronization of brain waves that results. Next comes the technique of progressive and systemic physical relaxation, while the hemisync frequencies are explained to include additional forms of pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well as to calm the left hemisphere of the mind while raising the right hemisphere to a state of heightened attentiveness. Once all of this is achieved, the participant is invited to envisage creation of an energy balloon. Sorry, I just got a text from someone that scared the fuck out of me. Comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out the balloon pattern again. This is fucking crazy. These guys are kind of like, they're giving you the sauce right now. You can literally just back out into the balloon pattern again. I want to go over that one more time. Once all this is achieved, the participant vision energy balloon comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down in all directions to the feet. Another thing I'd like to say, the Kundalini, they said that you could go up from the spine or down from the top, I think. And extending down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out the balloon pattern again. This energy balloon sets up a pattern. You know, I picture it more like two ovals. And you're in the center of the two ovals. Like, why is it a balloon? Like, what the fuck does that mean? Okay, the energy balloon, which sets up a pattern, cosmic egg, that's why, I knew that was why. Discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of a suit, but also with that cosmic egg, I can't fucking, just remember energy balloon, 29 energy balloon. This is what I'm picturing, just basically two of these, and you're in the center of it. You know what I'm saying? They got all this extra shit. It's still basically the same fucking thing. It's just going down and then comes back up. Goes down, comes back up. Goes down, comes back up. I don't think it matters so much the shape. They're just saying that because they're theorizing based on the placement of the galaxies. They think that it looks like that, but I don't think that's so important. But I don't know. Anyway, 29... energy balloon. Maybe it is. Who the fuck am I to fucking be like, no, that ain't right? Like, okay. Yeah, discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of a suitable resonant state, but it is also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels, which the participant might encounter in the event. That's funny. That he achieves an out-of-body state. It serves as a precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant's first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. I don't want to imagine that. It's kind of making me want to throw up. Um, that's like fucked up. How? That makes me uneasy. Cause I kind of always have an anxiety of phasing. Oh man, I don't even want to say it. Like, I have this thing. It's like I have a fear of big open spaces, like a really bad fear of them. And I have this fear because I'm into all this like crazy mind, psychic, fucking out of body astral projection shit. I'm always like scared, like, to just somehow, for some reason, be in a giant room. Like, it's so scary. Like, they say there's this giant room underneath Egypt, and it's just this giant room that's like bigger than like the city above it. It literally, just even the thought that that exists, like, makes, like, I get such bad anxiety just thinking about it. Like, I hate it. Like, I don't know what it is, just big open spaces. But that saying that just it gives me that idea. I like, oh, I don't. And I always have nightmares where I'm in the ocean, like, and I hate that shit. Because it's like I have full control and I can go wherever I want, but if I didn't, I would be like, it's so infinitely big and it just freaks me the fuck out and I don't understand it. Like, the other night, I had a dream that I was in Harambe. Harambe was in my dream, like, from 2016. Shouts out Harambe, R.I.P. But he was in my dream and I had to go in his cage and help him or whatever, and like his cage was like the size of planet Earth, and I hadn't realized, and he got angry, and then all of a sudden I fell, and he was massive, and then I was falling into the water below him, and I realized his cage was the size of planet Earth, and I was just had this horrible fear as I was like floating in this water, because I just was realizing the scope of it and how small I was, and it was like I couldn't get out, and then I just woke up, thankfully. Thank everything, like, oh my god. Like, it was crazy. But what I'm saying is, yeah, I don't want to phase out of existence. Advanced technique. Having reached focus 10, the participant is now ready to endeavor to achieve a state of sufficiently expanded awareness to begin actually interacting with dimensions beyond those associated with his experience of physical reality. The state is called Focus 12 and involves conscious effort on his part, while additional forms of pink and white noise enter the sound stream being directed into his ears from the gateway tape. Once the participant has achieved this state of greatly expanded awareness, he is ready to begin employing a series of specific techniques or tools, as the Monroe Institute characterizes them, which enable him to manipulate his newly found expanded awareness to obtain practical, useful feedback of values for promoting self-discovery and personal growth. The specific techniques involved are described individually below. Alright. Y'all want to go to some other universes? This is how. Problem solving. This technique involves identifying fundamental problems which the individual wishes to see solved, filling his expanded awareness with his perception of those problems, and then projecting them out into the universe. In this way, the individual enlists the assistance of what Monroe Institute calls his higher self. In other words, his expanded consciousness. Okay. Identifying problems the individual wishes to solve, filling his expanded awareness with these problems and projecting them into the universe. These are the problems I want to solve. And it calls upon his higher self to come solve them, to interact with the universal hologram to obtain the information required to solve the problem. Is this just saying one of the steps involved is go solve problems in your life? And if you have more problems, then just solve them. And so basically take on, a bit more than you can handle so that you get stronger? Is that what it's saying? This approach may be used to solve personal difficulties, technical problems in the realm of physics, mathematics. Okay, yeah. So challenge yourself, basically. Practical administrative problems and so on. Response to the problem-solving technique may be received almost immediately, but often they come based on developing intuition over the next 2 or 3 days. Frequently, the response comes in the form of a sudden holistic perception in which the individual suddenly finds that he simply knows the answer in all of its ramifications and completely in context, sometimes without even being able to put his newly found perception into words, at least initially. In some cases, the response may even arrive in the form of visual symbols which the individual will see with his mind while he is in the focus 12 state, and which will have to interpret after he returns to the normal consciousness. Okay, so they're not actually just talking about solving normal day-to-day problems. They're talking about that they're talking about solving normal day-to-day problems using these meditative techniques and all that. That's crazy. Patternizing. This technique involves use of the consciousness to achieve desired objectives in the physical, emotional, and intellectual sphere. It involves concentrating on the desired objective while in a focus 12 state. Extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the whole expanded consciousness and its projection into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement, which is destined to be realized within the time frame specific. So this is like law of attraction shit, it sounds like. This particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought pattern generated by our consciousness is a state of expanded awareness create holograms which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and in doing so establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought generated hologram of the sought after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under other circumstances, ever occur. In other words, the technique of patterning recognizes the fact that since consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time and space as it applies to us, if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. You gotta believe it. You gotta want it. However, the more complicated the objective sought and the more radically it departs from our current reality, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient our reality sphere to accommodate our desires. So it will come. You just gotta wait. Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existing reality with drastic consequences. Color breathing. The next technique is called color breathing and is designed to use the expanded awareness and highly focused attentiveness associated with the focus 12 state to imagine various colors in a particularly intense and vivid manner so as to use them to resonate with and in turn activate the body's own energies, the chakras it's going to talk about. I'm surprised it didn't talk about the thing about the universe going that way but turning this way, because that's a thing in it's so many things. Anyway, I Actually, no, never mind. I think this is going to talk about chakras, though. Fundamentally, in terms of practical application, it is a healing technique, which is designed to restore the body and to enhance its physical capabilities by balancing, revitalizing, and returning bodily energy flows. This is definitely going to be about the chakras. It is predicated on the principle that the body's electromagnetic field is capable of altering its resonance pattern so as to entrain energy from the Earth's electrostatic field for its own use. The various colors envisioned in the imagination as part of the technique cue the mind as to which frequencies and what specific amplitudes are desired in connection with this entrainment and the subsequent alteration in bodily energy flow patterns. That color has the capacity to affect the human mind. That color has the capacity. So, like, the fact that color has the capacity to affect the human mind is well known, and the effectuality of color in certain kinds of healing is a demonstrable fact. For example, the application of an intense blue light to an area of physical tumescence leads to relatively rapid and easily observed reduction in the swelling, while red and to a lesser extent yellow have quite the opposite effect. However, in the hemisync application of the technique, external light sources are not involved, but rather the mind is the sole agent of the healing and revitalization. So you're picturing these colors in your head. That's pretty crazy. That's almost as a means of healing. Okay. Energy bar tool. Oh my god, they're gonna talk about magic wands. Magic wands and enhanced scepters have been part of the folklore and occult practices of many called what? Yo, where are we at right now? The scepters, staffs, and maces carried by monarchs and high priests alike occur with such frequency in the history of bygone eras as to suggest that at the very least these items are aspects of some type of archetypical symbol which the human mind seems to appreciate. So archetypical symbols, there's like things within the human conscious that we all recognize. Like they're just there within the human conscious. It's not within your conscious or my conscious. It's within the human conscious. You know what I mean? It's why humans all gravitate to like certain things, or like so many people can gravitate to like a certain piece of art, and you know what I mean? Like it's like why? That's why, because there's archetypal things in the human conscious. There's also archetypes of people in the human conscious. So there's different types of personalities and stuff that can be brought about, and certain personalities resonate with people, certain ones don't. You know what I mean? But they're all already there, and they keep being re-personified throughout human existence. Yeah, so they're saying the scepters they must at least be some type of archetypical symbol within the mind that we appreciate, perhaps quite subliminally. See, they're speaking within the subconscious, which is what I'm saying. In any case, the energy bar tool technique involves envisaging a small, intensely pulsating dot of light which the participant charges in his imagination with enormous energy until it is virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, which he then uses to channel force from the universe to selected parts of the body for purposes of healing and revitalization. Okay. Remote viewing. In addition, the energy bar tool is used as a portal for initiating a follow-on technique called remote viewing. In this context, the participant turns his bar of energy into a whirling vortex, through which he sends his imagination in search of new and illuminating insights. The apparent purpose of the symbolism involved in the vortex seems to come to cue with the subconscious and convey it to instructions as to what the participant wishes to do, but in terms of nonverbal symbols which the light hemisphere of the mind is capable of understanding. Okay, that to me sounds a little bit like, what? You're telling me the CIA's doing this? They got dudes with metal sticks fucking sending their imaginations off? That's interesting. Alright. Living body map. This technique provides amplification for application of the energy bar tool as a means of healing specific areas or systems of the human body. I'm gonna get me a fucking metal stick. This got me sold. The configuration of the participant's body is imagined, and then the various major systems, such as the nervous system and circulatory systems, are envisaged in appropriate colors within the confines of the outline being held in the imagination. The energy bar tool is then applied to energizing, balancing, and healing in whatever manner the participant desires. In the process, the participant visualizes various streams of colored energy flowing out of the tool into the organ system or area upon which the revitalization or healing application is being made. Since colors are the result of differing wavelengths of light, which is to say, energy at various frequencies, this technique operates on the assumption that as the human body is composed of energy, it can be vitalized and healed through the additive application of additional energy, provided that the new energy is applied in the appropriate form. Oh my god. Travel into the past. So yeah, one of the little training techniques they have here at the CIA is just, traveling into the past. Before you get promoted, you gotta master this. Again, this is someone's job? Like, what? All the preceding techniques are conducted at the level of expanded awareness known as Focus 12. However, the technique of time travel into the past involves further expansion of consciousness through the inclusion of additional levels of sound on the hemisync tapes. Some of the sound is probably merely an intensification of the basic hemisync frequencies being designed to further modify brainwave frequencies and amplitude. Other aspects of the added sound pattern appear to be designed to provide subtle, almost subliminal suggestions to the mind as to what is desired by way of further expanded consciousness, so as to support the verbal suggestion and instructions also contained on the tape. Even the instructions are highly symbolic, which with time being visualized as a whole wheel in the universe with various spokes, each of which gives access to a different part of the participant's past. Holy fuck. That reminds me of the concept of the memory palace, which is essentially a way of certain people, they visualize a room and they store memories in the room, and it helps them memorize things because they can go back to that room in their mind and find it. It's really hard to explain, but if you just look that up, memory palace, this kind of reminds me of that. They're storing their past in a visualized area within their mind. Focus 15 is a very advanced state and is extremely difficult to achieve. probably less than 5% of all participants in any given gateway experience actually fully achieve the Focus 15 state during the course of the approximately 7 days of training. Nonetheless, well, it's only 7 days of training. Nonetheless, Monroe Institute trainers affirm that with enough practice, eventually Focus 15 can be achieved. They also state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by one who has achieved. They also state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by one who has achieved by Focus 15, but other aspects of the past with which the individual himself. Okay. I thought for a second it was saying other people who had this could go and check out their memories in the CIA. I'm like, whoa, like your boss is like, listen, buddy, I'm Focus 15. I know everything you've done, motherfucker. Yeah. Focus 21, the future. The last and most advanced of all focus states associated with the Gateway training program involves movement outside of the boundaries of time and space, as in Focus 15, but with attention to the discovering of the future rather than the past. The individual who has achieved this state has reached a truly advanced level, except in unusual circumstances it is probably not attainable, except by those who have conditioned themselves through long application of meditation, or by those who have practiced long and hard through use of hemisync tapes for a period of months, if not years. So, this is for the pros. Out-of-body movements. This remarkable phenomenon has been saved for discussion in detail until last, because of the interest of which it occasions and special circumstances involved in its attainment. Monroe Institute stresses that the Gateway program was not established solely for the purpose of enabling participants to obtain the out-of-body state, nor does the program guarantee that most participants will succeed in doing it during the course of the training at the Institute. Only one tape out of many which make up the Gateway experience is devoted to the techniques involved in the out-of-body movement. Basically, these techniques are merely designed to make it easy for the individual to achieve the out-of-body state when his brainwave patterns and personal energy levels have reached a point that he is in apparent harmony with his surrounding electromagnetic environment, such that he feels that he has reached the threshold where separation is a possibility. To facilitate achieving the out-of-body state, Bob Monroe, the founder of Monroe Institute, is quoted in a recent magazine article as saying that in order to assist the participant, quoted in a recent magazine saying that in order to assist the participant, the particular hemisync tape concerned with that technique employs beta signals of around 2877.3 CPS cycles per second. Since 30 to 40 cycles per second is considered the normal range for beta brainwave signals, so this emits them at fucking 2,877. Normal is 30 to 40. These associated, and 30 to 40 is what's associated with wakefulness states. It is apparent that the Monroe Institute is convinced that the same heightened state of brainwave frequency output which promotes altered states of consciousness is also an important consideration in assisting in achieving out-of-body states. The actual technique employed for separating from the body involves such simple maneuvers as rolling out, lifting out after the fashion of a telephone pole, wherein the individual separates in a rigid, head-first manner, such that he finds himself standing at attention at the foot of his physical body, and sliding out through either end of his body. So that's literally how they get out. Some people also imagine a rope and they pull themselves out with the rope. Role of REM sleep. So for all you motherfuckers that don't sleep, this is it. It is interesting to note that Bob Monroe informed the Gateway class that finished 7th of May 1983 that an ex-trainer of his operating in Charlottesville, Virginia, found that he could guarantee out-of-body movements by bringing participants down into a rapid eye movement state of sleep and then use the hemisync tape technique. This may well be a function of the fact that most, if not all, people reputedly go into an out-of-body state during REM sleep. REM sleep is the deepest possible level of ordinary sleep and involves complete disengagement of the body's motor cortex functions from the neck down and nearly complete suppression of consciousness in the left brain of the hemisphere. The effect of this is to put the body in a state of complete stillness so far as the skeletal muscle structure is concerned, thereby further promoting the state of deep rest needed to eliminate the bifurcation echo. So that thing that we were talking about way earlier with the heart, that just unnatural shit build up bad, that also happens when you don't sleep, because sleep gets rid of that. In addition, it leaves the right hemisphere of the brain free to respond to the instructions and suggestions contained on the Gateway tape. However, use of the hemisphere tapes at this point may be less a factor in actually achieving the out-of-body state than it is a matter of focusing the brain enough that a residual memory of having naturally achieved an out-of-body state is carried into the waking state. Indeed, it may even be suggested that some dreams associated with deep levels of sleep are in fact functions of the same kind of altered consciousness involved in the interaction with the universe that plays a role in all of the focus 12, 15, and 21 states described above. So maybe I didn't see Harambe. Maybe it was just some giant gorilla entity thing, actually. That's actually even scarier. The difference between those states and the condition of the mind in REM sleep seems to be that the left hemisphere is almost totally disengaged in the later experience, such that memory of what was achieved in the altered states of consciousness cannot usually be retrieved by conscious desire because the left hemisphere has no knowledge of its existence or its location in the right hemisphere. So that's why you forget dreams. Admittedly, some people can be trained to remember their REM state dreams through intense conditioning in the waking state, but even that may be more a function of establishing pathways in the right hemisphere which the left hemisphere can access following re-entry into the wakeful state than it is an indication of any specific left hemisphere consciousness involvement in the process during REM sleep. In any event, the three apparent conditions required for voluntarily inducing an out-of-body state in most individuals seems to be achievement of a state of profound quiet in the body, such that the bifurcation echo fades and resonance at approximately 7 Hz is established, synchronization of the two brain hemisphere wane patterns, and subsequent stimulation of the right hemisphere of the mind to attain a state of heightened alertness, which of course interferes with brain hemisphere synchronization, but not until a sufficient level of enhanced frequency range has first been established to help achieve the out-of-body state. So that's how you do it, y'all. Information collection. I like how they're just so concerned with collecting information that they've literally found out, like, the universe, and they're like, okay, so now how can we use this to get information? We are the Central Intelligence Agency. Like, okay. Information collection potential. The information acquisition potential associated with this out-of-body state seems to attract the most attention from the standpoint of developing practical applications for the Gateway technique. Unfortunately, although the out-of-body state can apparently be achieved by many people without excessive expenditure of time or effort, the purpose to which it can be put to the purposes to which it can be put are currently limited by the fact that although individuals in that state may travel anywhere on an instantaneous basis in either the terrestrial or in other spheres, information distortion in the former context remains a major concern. To date, according to one of the trainers at Monroe Institute, numerous experiments have been conducted involving persons moving from one coast to the other in the out-of-body state to read a series of 10 computer-generated numbers in a university laboratory. Although most have acquired enough of the digits to make clear that their consciousness was present, none have ever succeeded in getting all 10 correct. This seems to be a function of the fact that physical reality in the present is not the only holographic influence which the individual may encounter in an out-of-body state. There are also energy patterns left by people or events occurring at the same physical site being viewed, but from the past rather than the present. In addition, since thoughts are the product of energy patterns, and energy patterns are reality, it may also be possible that individuals encounter thought forms while in an out-of-body state, which mingle with physical realities and are not easily differentiated. Finally, as Melissa Jagger writes, there is another potential problem area in the sense that holograms can be viewed pseudoscopically, that is to say, inside out or backwards, just as well as they can be seen in proper perspective. Some of the distortions occurring may ultimately prove to be traceable to this cause, because in the out-of-body state an individual may perceive the holographic energy patterns given off by people or things interacting in time-space reality in a somewhat distorted form. Belief system considerations. In 1967, Alexander David Neal and Lama Yongden wrote a book titled Secret Oral Techniques in Tibetan Buddhist Sects, from which the following quote is taken. The tangible world is movement, say the masters, not a collection of moving objects, but movement itself. There are no objects in movement. It is the movement which constitute the objects which appear to us. They are nothing but movement. This movement is continued and infinitely rapid succession of flashes of energy. All objects perceptibly to our senses, all phenomena of whatever kind and whatever aspects they may assume, are constituted by a rapid succession of instantaneous events. This is true. The classic description of the universal hologram is to be found in a Hindu sutra, which says, well, they're talking about Hindu, they know. In the heaven of Indra, there is said to be a network of pearls so arranged that if you look at one, you will see all the others reflected in it. I have cited this quotation because it shows that the concept of the universe, which at least some physicists are now coming to accept, is identical in its essential aspects with the one known to the learned elite in selected civilizations and cultures of high attainment in the ancient world. The concept of the cosmic egg, for example, is well known to scholars familiar with the ancient writings of the Eastern religions. That's what I'm saying. Nor are the theories presented in this paper at variance with the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. The concept of visible reality, i.e. the created world, as being an emanation of an omnipotent and omniscient divinity who is completely unknowable in his primary state of being. The absolute at rest in infinity is a concept straight out of Hebrew mystical philosophy. That's what I was showing you guys. Those Gnostic Nag Hammadi texts. Yeah. There's also the Tarot, I think it's called. You can check that out too. But I'm not sure what that goes into, if that's like the same thing. But they mentioned Hebrew here. Yeah. Even the Christian concept of the Trinity shines through the description of the Absolute as presented in this paper. The description of energy totally arrests. The affinity fits the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father, while the infinite self-consciousness resides in that energy, provides the motive force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality corresponds with the sun. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the Absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. Remember what I said about it projected itself in the sky and then the thing built it? I don't know. I'm always drawing parallels. That hologram is a mirror image of the Absolute in infinity, still exists outside time and space, but is one step removed from the Absolute, and is the actual agent of all creation, all reality. And the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-conscious, serves the 34, 37. Why is there fucking 3 points cut? 35, 36, or, yeah, where's 35 and 36 and the rest of 34? Guys, this is a fucking conspiracy. Well, I'm about to get shot for discovering this. No, but like for real, what the fuck? Where is it? Anyway, I guess we can't read what the rest of what they were gonna say, but I've been telling you guys this whole fucking time, like, this shit's like referenced in everything. So yeah, look anywhere and all of this is there. Like, any religion you turn to, if you keep going and keep going and keep going, this is where you're gonna come back to. They all will bring you to the same place. I've been down the various religious rabbit holes, like, alright, motivational aspect. It is a step-by-step procedure which involves repetitive practice of the techniques concerned, using each new insight as a means of penetrating further during the next practice session. But the state of progress is so much faster with the gateway approach than it is with transcendental meditation or other forms of mental self-discipline, and its horizons seem to be so much wider that the discipline needed to practice it would seem to be within the means of even the impatient, result-oriented, skeptical pragmatist of our society. Unlike yoga and other forms of Eastern mental philosophy, Gateway does not require the infinite patience and total personal subservience to and faith in a system of discipline designed to absorb all the individual's energies almost over a lifetime. These are like, okay, we've ready rocked religion. We got it in the best form. This is like concentrate religion. It will begin to produce at least minimal results within a relatively short time, such that enough feedback is available to motivate and energize the individual to continue working with it. Indeed, the speed with which an individual may expect to progress seems less a function of the number of hours spent practicing than it is a question of the speed with which he is able to use the insights gained to release anxieties and stresses within both the mind and the body. These points of energy blockage seems to provide the principal barriers to achieving the enhanced energy states and focus of mind needed for rapid progression. the more compulsive, the more uptight, the more compulsive, the more uptight the individual may be at the outset, the more barriers he or she will initially encounter to achieve a deep or immediate experience. But as the insights begin to come and the blockages begin to dissolve, the way ahead becomes increasingly clear, and the value of Gateway moves from the status of a matter of intellectual assessment to one of personal experience. These guys are really fucking... This is something else, like... Conclusion. There is a sound rational basis in terms of physical science parameters for considering Gateway to be plausible in terms of its essential objectives. Intuitional insights of not only personal but of a practical and professional nature would seem to be within bounds of reasonable expectations. However, a phased approach for entering the Gateway experience in an accelerated mode would seem to be required if the time needed to reach advanced states of altered consciousness is to be brought within more manageable limits from the standpoint of establishing an organization-wide exploitation of Gateway's potential. The most promising approach suggested in the foregoing study involves the following steps. Begin by using the Gateway hemisync tapes to achieve enhanced brain focus and induce hemisphere synchronization. Then add a strong REM sleep frequency to induce left brain and deep physical relaxation. Provide hypnotic suggestions designed to enable an individual to induce deep auto-hypnotic state at will. Use auto-hypnotic suggestion to obtain more enhanced focus of concentration and motivation in rapidly progressing through Focus 12 exercises. Then repeat steps A and B following the use of the auto-hypnotic suggestion that an out-of-body movement will occur and be remembered. Repeat step E to achieve facility in gaining out-of-body state under conscious control. After hypnotic suggestion, to stress ability to consciously control out-of-body movements and maintain it even after REM sleep state ends. Approach Focus 15 and 21 objectives: escape from time and space and interact with new dimensions from the out-of-body perspective. Use multi-focus approach to solve problems of distortion in terrestrial information gathering types. This approach involves the use of 3 individuals in the out-of-body state, one viewing the target object here in time-space, one viewing it at Focus 15 as it slips into the immediate past, and one viewing it at Focus 21 as it slips from the immediate future. Debrief all 3 and compare data gathered from the 3 points of view. If care is taken to ensure that the 3 all go out of body together in the same environment, their consciousness energy system should resonate in sympathetic oscillation. They can tune into the same target on different planes with greater effectiveness. Encourage pursuit of full self-knowledge by all individuals involved in the foregoing experiments to enhance objectivity in out-of-body observations and thinking, and to remove personal energy blockages likely to retard rapid progression. Be intellectually prepared to react to possible encounters with intelligent, non-corporal energy forms when time-space boundaries are succeeded. I think this is the only problem I have. I don't know. That seems... arrange to have groups of people in Focus 12 state unite their altered consciousness to build holographic patterns around sensitive areas to repulse possible unwanted out-of-body presences. encourage more advanced gateway participants to build holographic patterns of successful attainment and rapid progress for advanced colleagues to assist them in progressing through the gateway system. If these experiments are carried through, it is to be hoped that we will truly find a gateway into the realm of practical application for the whole system of technique which comprises it. And then this is like where they get all the information, or the people that wrote it. Yeah, so that's that. It's like about 4 hours. We went through this entire fucking document, and it's pretty fucking crazy that this is a conclusion the CIA came up with. This is pretty much exactly what I believe the universe is all about. Causes me a lot of dread. Like sometimes, well, not a lot of. It's just sometimes, like I was saying, I have this fear of big open spaces. Like the fact that, like, I know this sounds horrible, but there was a point in my life where I was suicidal, and I'm glad that I'm not. But at the same time, if I was, where would I have gone? And like, it just doesn't end no matter what. You know what I mean? You just have to keep experiencing forever. That seems so crazy. It is what it is. Yeah, definitely let me know what you think in the comments, for sure. Like, your thoughts on this. If there's any other ones you think I should check out. Yeah, with that being said, I'm tired as hell. It's been like 4 hours. So, thank you so much for watching. Like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And check out my music, because I'm actually mainly a musician. And I just do stuff like this on the side. But yeah, my rapper name is Lil Witchy, so yeah, you can also find my music on my YouTube channel and on Spotify and Apple Music and SoundCloud and anywhere music is available. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and if you astral project, try not to get lost, please. And CIA, don't come looking for me. You guys put this stuff out there. But I want those 2 missing points from the end. And also, whatever, don't curse me. This is not for my personal gain. I just thought I would record this because it's very interesting. But anyway, thank you for watching.